That feels like a particularly ominous start on a Friday where we have a short show and I have no plan. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I basically got rickrolled the second I connected the Comrex. Maddie is in for Haney, who's taking a vacation because our show only goes till 5:15 today. We're just going to take some calls. We're going to talk about free agency. We're going to have a good time, and then we're going to go off into our weekend. So, buckle up, kids. It's going to be a fun one. 301-230-0980 is, of course, the phone number. 301-230-0980 is where you go to reach this here radio show. Matt, I'm going to get our conversation started, because you and Russell had a weird week on your show timing-wise. We had a weird week. We had the wacky bit where our show ended at 6 on Wednesday, and Bobby Wagner started at 5:40 or signed at 5:45, and then on Thursday we didn't start till 5, and Sam Howell got traded at 4:15. So that was fun. But what's been the kind of the wackiest free agent thing for you amidst all the college basketball and the schedules and the insanity of the week on the over on the Chris Russell Show?
I think probably our Monday and Tuesday were absolutely insane, because you got to remember Monday right around 1 o'clock was when we started getting the first buzz about players coming in, and that was really when we just hit the ground running. That from the start, from the jump, it was every single segment we would go to break and realize, oh, we missed another signing and we missed another player getting dropped. That there really hasn't been an off time, because you got to think yesterday we were blessed with the Maryland game, which meant that Chris was only on for 1 hour.
Right.
We left the show thinking that, you know what, we got Mariota, we have Howell, this is kind of where we're going. By the time we come back, that is absolutely not the case. And so It has been I think the biggest thing with this free agency week has been, you believe that it's going to be one way coming into the show, and you're like, all right, we're prepped for, these are the players that we still need to look for, and this is I would really like this, and then you leave, and it's completely different.
No, I've done a couple of YouTube lives reacting to breaking news this week because stuff has happened off hours, and it's like, I feel like I want to talk about this. And so we've gone live on YouTube a couple times, and we started the show. Like, yesterday was the craziest thing we've ever done. We literally started the show off the radio online because we just wanted to get in on the Howell stuff as soon as we possibly could. And, we had thousands of people like streaming along with us on YouTube to be like, yeah, what do you guys got to say? Good reminder to, obviously subscribe at the Team 980. And Anthony even put those segments in the podcast. So subscribe to the Hoffman Show podcast. You get the full show one way or the other. Even if the Terps were busy turtling yesterday. They turtled into their shells and got we don't need to talk about it. So I think the thing that has been so impressive for me, Matt, for the Commanders this week is just how efficient they've been. I mean, the ability to sign so many guys and to truly feel like we are now going into the first weekend of free agency with, phase 2, phase 3, kind of the second wave of this first pre-draft free agency. I'd call it phase 2. And then phase 3 of free agency is post-draft. And by the way, you still got the draft. And how many holes they filled. And they filled them with quality. Like, they haven't filled them with upper echelon blue chips by any stretch. Even they're like B+ type of players, which I think like Wagner at this point is somewhere B+ type of player. He's lost a little bit in terms of his range and coverage, but he led the NFL in tackles last year. He's still smart, sure tackler, fantastic against the run. But he's no longer on Fred Warner's level as a coverage player. Then again, who is? But Wagner, there was a time when he was the only other one. And then, Luvu, I think, has a chance to be like a B-level player. Chin, BB+ type of player, depending on how real that rookie season was from him and the health and the whole deal. But then just a bunch of other solid football players that have freed you up in this draft to be really flexible with what you do. And I think that's the exciting thing is I feel like they can do the things the Wizards failed to do this year, which is they can be in the middle of a rebuild with an acknowledgement that they're not going to have the talent to be like truly competitive in like a we could go to the Super Bowl sense in 2024, while still being competitive week in and week out. They're going to be competitive enough to be interesting. They're going to be a team that I think, unlike, the Wizards the first half of the year especially, like, you can be proud of to be like, yeah, that's my team. They fight every week. I know they're not very good yet, but y'all just wait till we get a quarterback or till our quarterback, develops. And I think that the fact that they've already been able to establish that, and I think the other thing, Matt, like even more macro, if such a thing exists, is like, guys want to play here. And how long did you have to pay that Washington tax, that Snyder tax, that Bruce Allen tax, mediocre coaches, whatever, on down the list, basically since Shanahan has been here and most of the coaches before that too, were like, nobody really wanted to play here. You had a lot of pressure and not a lot of success. And now it's like, ownership is great. Peters is phenomenal. He's clearly got great relationships and agents and players trust him. And dudes want to straight up play for Dan Quinn and for Cliff Kingsbury, frankly, on the offensive side. When you look at Ertz or Eckler wants to play with Anthony Lynn, like they have a place where they want to be. And ultimately, if they can get the facility straightened out and obviously do a little bit of winning, like there, you see the path to the franchise on the whole being like back. And when I say back, I mean like really back. Not, are they back because can they sell out a football game? And it's like they used to sell out every football game. No, they could be back like genuinely competitive week in, week out, contending for Super Bowls, free agent signing here. Like you see the path, and to see it this quickly, I think is pretty damn cool.
I'm with you. And what I particularly like about what they're doing right now in free agency is this organization is taking some of the players that we as a fan base and as the media have been covering and saying, you know what, this is one of the best players we have on the team. They might not be one of the best in the league, but they're some of the best that we have. Your Cam Curls, your Kendall Fullers, Curtis Samuel, they've been great for us, but in a comparison of what this team is doing, we now have a organization that takes that and says, you know what, not good enough. And instead of trying to get the number one player that's going to cost half of our entire cap, they're looking at who are the players that have done it, that have been successful in the league, that have been veteran and have had positive voices in their locker room. Let's get those guys because, as we all know, now we have 6 picks in the first 100 draft. So we're going to have basically a team that is half veterans that have experience and a real ability to lead in the locker room and on the field, and half of them are going to be rookies that are high up draft picks. So this team is all of a sudden trying to be like, you know what? Yes, there are players that have done a lot for us. We appreciate that. But moving forward, done a lot isn't good enough.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I want to do an exercise next. We talked about doing this yesterday. And if we have a bunch of calls, I'm happy to take calls. So by all means, call in 301-230-0980. Matt, this is the part in our show where the phones typically blow up. Or we get through our first segment. We're like, is anybody going to call? And about 4:17, kaboom, go the phone lines. So we're happy to just like free for all free agency frenzy Friday. How about that for some alliteration? I don't even think I could say that again and get the words in the right order a second time around. But it's just a free-for-all today. Thoughts on free agency, where they go from here, where they go in the draft. Like, we got a short show. I want to talk to you guys. Let's do it. 301-230-0980. But if we don't have a bunch of calls, I want to see just how many guys we think are going to be new on this 53. And of the guys that are staying, how many of them we think... or how many of them are going to be like Ron Rivera products? AKA, of the guys that are staying, you got Terry and John and a bunch of dudes who were here before Ron Rivera got here. Just how much are they flipping this roster is really the core of the question that I want to get at. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, and then I'm going to bust out a spreadsheet and everything. Next, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. A couple of news and notes before we take some calls, and I've almost got the spreadsheet ready to go as well. 301-230-0980. If you missed it, Kenny Pickett traded. Matt, did you see the details of this, by the way?
I've not.
So he's traded from the Steelers to the Eagles, the intra-Pennsylvania trade. And it basically happened because Kenny Pickett did not react well to them signing Russell Wilson. Like, he was being a giant pain in the butt after he was all mad and a bad teammate about being benched in Week 17 last year when Mason Rudolph got the nod over him. And they're like, enough of you. We're sending you across the state, which sounds like the start of a sitcom, but is Kenny Pickett's reality. So he gets traded. Meanwhile, the tackle market keeps growing. Titans release Andre Dillard. So yet another tackle on the market. Dillard saves the Titans about $10 million on the cap. All right, let's take some calls. 301-230-0980. I should also mention our one and only guest today will be Mike Jones. He'll join us coming up at 4:45. Let's go to Kurt in Bishop Heights. Kurt, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Craig,
what's up, Kurt?
this is 3 straight days I got to call in.
What a privilege for you, or maybe for me. I mean, I think maybe it's mutual. Maybe it's mutual. What are your thoughts on free agency so far, though?
I want to talk a little bit about the Rivera turnover. I think that Peters wants to, I think he wants to wash his hands of as many Rivera players as possible, except for, your first round picks and then your, like guys like Terry McLaurin and things like that. But I was wondering about one particular player that I don't know if he's high on him, but I think he should be a re-sign, and that would be Cornelius Lucas. Because it seems like every time he gets in the game, whether he's filling in left tackle, right tackle, whatever, he seems to do a solid job. And it just seemed like, to me, that would be a no-brainer to sign him, for depth purposes, a swing tackle. I don't understand why he hasn't been approached about re-signing.
Well, we don't know, Kurt, if he's been approached or not yet. The tackle market being what it is, I think a lot of tackles are kind of waiting to see if they can get a little bit of extra money somewhere. But I do agree with you that I would re-sign Corn Lucas. He's a very, very good swing tackle who, if you need to start him for a couple of games, is perfectly fine and reliable at left or right tackle. And I think, frankly, he's played better at left than he has right. But he's not the guy you necessarily want to be your full-time starter because he is limited, right? His limitations aren't necessarily he's going to get beat in pass protection like with regularity. He's not bad, but like he's not like this elite mover. He doesn't have elite strength. He's not elite in any way other than like his height and weight. He is an enormous mountain of a man.
But I wasn't talking about signing him
for sure.
As
for sure.
Time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
As a depth piece, I think he's a great depth piece.
I agree. So
they need starter and depth.
Here would be my one consideration, though, and my one thought of an alternate plan, because I agree with you. He is a quality guy as a swing tackle and as depth. But let's say you go sign Tyron Smith, and you want to draft a left tackle to be your future to replace Tyron Smith as soon as Tyron Smith retires. Well, now that guy, that first-round pick, is probably your swing tackle in year one. And so it becomes it's funny because I'm sitting here making this depth chart that I'm about to fill out and to be able to understand like how many guys are Rivera guys, how many guys are new signings, and how many guys predate either administration. And you realize like that 53 goes pretty quick. And so it does become a factor where you have to think like, are we going to carry 4 tackles? Because if so, I'd sign Corn Lucas today. If you're a 3-tackle team, then probably not.
I think they're going to do that, just what you said. I think they're going to do exactly that, which brings me to my next question. I'm just not my question is on Wiley on the end. If they're not going to move him to guard, I don't see why he would stay at right tackle. I just don't think that he's capable as a starter on that right side.
This is probably my most unpopular opinion. I don't know if it's my most unpopular opinion. I should really give myself more credit on that department. But I think Andrew Wiley is better than most people think he is. He had some really bad misses last year. And the problem is like when he gets beat, it's pretty bad. He's had some pretty clean losses, which is less than ideal to say the least. But he's way better as a run blocker than people realize. And like a huge part of the success they did have in the run game last year is the partnership of him and Cosme on that right side. I also think that it's up to Cliff and Bobby Johnson, obviously, is the O-line coach, and all the different play designers to understand your limitations with Wiley and provide him chip help, or make sure that if you're going to roll, you roll away from him. Like there's ways to kind of plan around one weaker link, especially when the weak link is like league average or maybe slightly below as a pass blocker. Wiley graded out pretty decently on PFF. Logan graded him out pretty well last year. Like, yes, some of the biggest sacks, hits, like free runners, stuff that happened last year, Andrew Wiley got beat. And that is real and that is on tape. But if that happens once a game and he's really good the rest of the snaps, like the rest of the snaps aren't wishy-washy, it's like he's either really good or really bad, and he's really good way more than he's really bad. I think it's just something at the number you've already got him at, you probably live with. So I know that's not satisfying, and you can upgrade for sure, but that's kind of where I think I am on Andrew Wiley.
I thought they'd move him to guard myself. I really did.
Yeah, I thought that was a possibility, but at last that seems to be a pipe dream of everybody outside of whatever the address is now on Joe Gibbs Way in Ashburn. So alas. Kurt, thanks as always for the call, man. Have a great weekend. All right, that is Kurt on the Team 980 listener line, 301-230-0980. Let's go to Fred in Capitol Heights. Fred, what do you think of the job that Adam Peters has done so far?
I think they've done a very good job. I am trusting the process. I am willing to sit back and watch and just listen to what they're doing. I don't think at this time they're going to tip their hand by really telling us too much about what they're doing. I think they have probably watched game film, have evaluated players, and have in mind just what they plan to do. If there are any other free agents they're going to sign, they've got in mind who they're looking for. I think they've already got in mind in terms of evaluating people who are available in the draft. And I'm just willing. My family and I, we went out last weekend and we bought our season tickets for this year because we want to be there, and we're excited about this season.
Fred, thanks for the call, and I think you are not alone. I've actually talked to multiple people. I mean, this is the nature of things, right? People find out what I do for a living, and they're like, oh, well, let me tell you my sports takes or my sports things. And I was talking with someone the other day who has had season tickets for both the Commanders and the Wizards in her family for like 3-4 decades at this point. And they are pretty darn good seats in both places. They are suddenly very excited about the Commanders, and their Wizards season tickets will not move to Alexandria if the team moves. So it's that kind of thing that people are, and we've had, one of the callers who's called in and said, like, hearing us talk about the team, and it's not like we're trying to do a sales job for the team. If they want to send me a check for the commission on the season ticket, journalistically, I'd absolutely turn that down. That's what I'm going to say. I'm absolutely going to turn that down. But Matt would take it. Matt, you would.
Possibly.
I mean, are you a journalist as a producer, or are you just, you'd be
I
like,
mean,
I don't know, I'm just a button
SAG-AFTRA,
presser. I
so
gotta know.
I don't know.
I'm not. We're not union anymore either. I'm not SAG-AFTRA. So we used to be. That's a whole different. That is a 106.7 versus the Team 980 behind the scenes off air story. Craig Hoffman's good times with SAG-AFTRA in a previous version of the Team 980. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. But point being, I think there's a lot of people that are like, hooray, competency, take my money. And the season ticket holder base is growing, because even if they know they're going to have to sit through an interesting year of mediocre football potentially because of the quarterback position. And I did a podcast earlier today with someone and as a guest, and he was kind of like, what do you think the over-under is for the season? And I was like, it's still like 6.5, 7.5. But it's because quarterback is so important to the success of an NFL football team. And I have zero faith that the quarterback play in 2024 is going to be good, whether that's Marcus Mariota or a rookie. But I have a lot of faith this team's going to be competitive despite that. And I have a lot of faith in the people picking the quarterback that ultimately they will figure it out. It just might take a year or two. And that's the luck of the draw sometimes. 301-230-0980. That is, of course, the Team 980 listener line. Let's go to the junkyard dog. JYD, what up? How you feeling about this free agency class so far?
Well, basically, I look at it as, if fans are looking at it, they had to known that there was going to be a big change. I made a comment to Doc on his show last Sunday, that this team, that this organization now really despises anything that of the old regime. If anybody, if they find a way that they can get rid of John Allen and send him a packing, they're going to do it. It's just the nature of the beast. I don't think they have any full trust in anybody left pretty much on this football team, and it's going to be a mess for at least another year or two before they really settle down and get something going.
I mean, I do think Allen is safe at this point. Thanks always for the call, JYD. I think Allen is safe, but if someone called for the right price, I do think that they would listen. Why would you pay John Allen with the free agent defensive tackle class, or why would you give up draft capital with the free agent class that existed this year? If you wanted a stud, you could just go pay him because Allen's expensive anyway. So I do think that eventually, but I do think like a year from now, Allen's a guy that could be on the chopping block. That is the nature of the NFL. And that's not personal to John Allen. They're on Payne next year. Terry McLaurin. If those guys don't go about their business in a way that this new regime likes, they will move on. And I do appreciate that about them. It's a cold business in that way. But for all the times that I think we have to, we look at the NFL and be like, can you be a little bit more human? This is purely business. And when at least you're being about the business, I got no problem with it being business. And they are doing business things, including Sam Howell. They got the right price. They got a chance to, no matter what you think the equivalency is, they got a chance to get the 78th pick in the draft. And they took it for a guy that was probably going to be inactive for them, or the third quarterback for them. Why wouldn't you do that? And it saves you whatever headache could have possibly come of, whoa, oh my God, your guy's struggling. Marcus is struggling. Do you go to Howell? Now you don't got to worry about all that. Sure, will Howlers be in my YouTube comments being like, Sam could have played better? Yes, from now until the end of time. I still get Taylor Heineke comments. But there's a lot less of them than if either of those guys were here. And it's just not worth the headache at that point. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. More of your calls, and then Mike Jones from The Athletic rounds out our hour and damn near our show with you till 5:15 before we got more conference tournament college hoops for you tonight here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Taking your calls, 301-230-0980 before Mike Jones joins us coming up at 4:45. Getting your thoughts on free agency so far, including the Sam Howell trade yesterday. I know we took a bunch of calls on that during the show yesterday, but not in this 4 o'clock hour because we weren't on the radio yet. At this point yesterday, we were streaming live on YouTube only as we were waiting on Maryland's disastrous end to a season to finally come to an end. If you missed those segments yesterday, you can check them out. You got all weekend on demand, anytime, anywhere. The Hoffman Show podcast, Anthony went ahead and added those digital only, not on the radio segments to the podcast, so you can check it out there. More of your calls now, though. 301-230-0980 is the Team 980 listener line. Our guy DH in DC is with us. DH, what do you think of the free agent moves so far?
Hey, Craig, man, I'll say this. You know what? This roster is so much different, even from the last time we talked earlier this week, man. I think it's a true indictment on the lack of care that the previous regime had to this roster. And I'm not going to lie, as a fan, I assumed that we were just better. But when you look at the whole thing, it just makes sense that we were a middle-of-the-road team with middle-of-the-road players. And even this season going forward, you know, it just feels like we'll be a little bit more competitive this year with some of the guys that we signed. Of course, as a Tar Heel, you know, I hate to see Sam go, but even I saw the writing on the wall. And it looks like he'll get opportunity at some point to play some good football. And it's crazy that out of that 2022 class, he's the best. He will be the best, in my opinion, of those guys. But, I mean, I'm excited about what Peters and crew have done. I mean, they've really flipped the field, for lack of a better word, with our roster. And it just feels like we'll be a little bit more competitive and kind of be in the mix in an ever-changing league, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, I agree with most of what you said, but I got to say, like, Brock Purdy does have a bit of a say on that 2022 quarterback draft class with what he's done. But I think Sam is probably
him. My bad.
Yeah, no, it's you know, he's so far in a class on his own with the success that he's had compared to these other guys. It's almost hard to forget because everyone else in that class has been, I would say, Sam Howell and down. To me, he's the second best guy in that class. And there's a point early last year where Purdy's kind of, you know, playing really well, but it's so much of the system and who's around him. And Sam's starting to put up some numbers. We're like, I don't know, maybe the Commanders actually stole the best quarterback in this class. And, you know, the rest of the season is a disaster, but we'll see. But I think overall, like, yeah, and it's not like a lack of care. It's a lack of ability. Like, they're bad at this. The previous regime was just bad at it. And it's really hard. And I think they cared. I don't think they always cared about the right stuff, but there's just no replacement for knowing what you're doing. And there's definitely this class or this crew that's now in charge knows what it's doing. DH, real quick before I let you go, since you are a Tar Heel, are you on Drake May for the Commanders, or does that terrify you?
Oh, man. After seeing it firsthand, it terrifies me. However, I do believe, and this is just my opinion, but I think Drake may have what it takes in this offense. I think all the quarterbacks really has what it takes in this type of offense to make it happen. But for Drake May's sake, I kind of want to see him somewhere else, man, because I've already taken enough UNC quarterback slander, so I don't know how much more I can take for another couple seasons. But if it works out, it works out. You know, I'm sitting pretty, but. I don't know, man. I just feel like at the top, man, whoever they go with, I think it'd be a good option. But if Drake comes, I won't be sad. Trust me.
I got you. All right, DH, thanks for the call as always. Have a great weekend, bro.
Thank you, brother. You too.
All right, that is DH. You can call into 301-230-0980. I will say I was watching more tape this morning, Matt, because I'm a big old dork, and this is my job. But I was watching a breakdown from Kurt Benkert, former NFL quarterback, played under Kyle a little bit, played under LaFleur a little bit. Like, playing is strong. He was in the league. He was on rosters. Never really made it much of a career. But he was breaking down one of the games that I had watched, too, NC State UNC. And there's just the footwork stuff with Drake May is, like, infuriating because he's so inconsistent. But then he puts it together, and you're like, he's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. And that's, like, the problem is, how quickly can he learn? And so I think, actually, I meant to look this up. I I'm more intrigued by Drake May's pro day than any pro day I can remember. Now, Washington hasn't been this high in the draft in a while and in the quarterback market in this way in a while. But I really want to see his pro day, which unfortunately isn't until the end of the cycle. You got Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, USC coming up on the 20th, so you get Caleb there. Michigan's March 22nd, so next week, a week from today, actually, you get J.J. McCarthy's. And then the week after, the 27th, you get Jayden Daniels. 28th, you get North Carolina and Washington. So that is Penix from Washington and obviously Drake May. Like, if May gets to that pro day, and yes, it's unscripted. Yes, there's no pressure. Yes, it's all those, or yes, it's scripted. Yes, there's no pressure. All those things. But if he can just consistently do the footwork stuff, it shows me an ability to improve in that area that I'm like, okay, I feel like we can work with this. But man, some of the stuff he does on tape is infuriating. And just like Ben Kerr watched that game and he's like, this guy's a second or third round pick. And I understand why he said it, even if I, at this point, think I would still probably take him second overall.
I mean, I think that it's important to note that whereas in past years there had been quarterbacks coming out that immediately it was apparent they could start week one, be fine, and be successful in the league, I don't know if there is actually a quarterback right now that's coming out of the draft that I can easily say is just going to be a plug and play that isn't going to be a 1 year. You need to really kind of bring them into the system and teach them. I don't think there is a flat out, there's no room for, or not no room for improvement, but there isn't an active, you need to get better and you need to figure out how we play at the speed with the players around you.
Yeah,
in this draft.
I agree. And I think
nothing wrong there, but it's just the
right.
state
You're
of the
going to have to have
quarterbacks.
patience with these guys. And the question is, like, how damaging is it if they play early versus do you want them to sit and get the Jordan Love treatment or the Patrick Mahomes treatment, 1 year versus 3 years or a half a season, whatever it is. Like, they're going to struggle early. And, we're going to have to live with either that or Marcus Mariota starting games here. I think the guy who's probably most ready because he played in the pro, like a legit pro offense, he just wasn't asked to do a whole lot, is McCarthy. But he needs to put on size over time. We'll see what he does this offseason in the weight room. And he's already put on some. Like, and there was some stuff coming out of the combine where guys were like, "Oh, he's already like put on some serious weight, and that's real." But I do think that is worth remembering as like, this is a bit of a different quarterback class. For as highly touted as they are, they're touted because of their ceilings and their potential, not necessarily what they are right now, like some previous classes have been. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll take a quick look at what's trending, and then Mike Jones from The Athletic will join us to talk about the Sam Howell trade and whether or not Washington got proper value in return for their former starting quarterback. That's all next on the Hoffman Show. The Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And joining us now, our one and only guest today, Mike Jones, senior NFL writer from The Athletic. Mike, thank you as always for your time, sir. You and your colleague, our friend Ben Standig, wrote at The Athletic about the Sam Howell trade. And it's hard to make sense of it, I think, a bit for me as an analyst, because there's so many draft charts out there. I don't know which one's the best one. Now we have this Kenny Pickett trade as well. Comparison we trade. Ultimately, though, when you looked at the market and looked at the return,
I mean, when I was asking around, a lot of people were saying, well, whatever they get, it's going to be less than what Justin Fields gets. And some people thought, well, it's going to, probably going to be like Mac Jones, or, what they might have to like swap 7th round picks and that be it. So for them to take their 4th and turn it into a 3rd, and their 6th and turn it into a 5th. So they moved up around in each one. According to those those draft point charts, they basically traded Sam Howell for an early 4th round pick, which, considering they only spent a 5th round pick on him, and New England had to, settle for a 6th round pick for the 15th overall pick of, the 2021 draft. And Trey Lance, basically netted a 3rd round pick last year when he was the 3rd overall pick. I think that Washington did a pretty decent job, I think it's a good situation for Howell, for him to be able to go in there and sit behind Geno Smith for a season, or maybe part of a season. We'll see how Geno plays, but if he continues to play like he has, it's basically a season, because they can get out of Geno's contract after this year, and potentially Sam Howell could be the guy there in Seattle.
I think what's interesting about it, Mike, is, the valuation of the pick swaps and Sam netting out at essentially an early 4th rounder. But they receive this pick in the top 100 and the top 80 even, in a draft that is pretty loaded up at a lot of positions that they need. I'm just curious, how those charts work, and when you talk to execs, more anecdotally than qualitatively, how they talk about the Commanders getting yet another pick inside the top 80, particularly in this draft, versus how a pick like that is valued in other years where the contour of the draft and the talent in it might be different.
I didn't have a whole lot of specific talks about, the swaps and everything like that, but the people that I talked to were just surprised that they were able to get what they did, because, like I said, some people thought it would be like swapping 6th or 7th round picks or something like that. So the moving up was something that, raised a couple of eyebrows, and, people that I talked to said, hey, that's good for them. And look, we don't know if they're going to use all those picks that they have in the top 100, but you always just want as many assets as you can. They could use them to trade up, or they could use is trying to fill out as many holes on that roster, and then be in position to draft best player available. And, it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to play out.
I think, as Mike Jones, of course, senior NFL writer for The Athletic, is with us, where do you think this then leaves Washington? Marcus number 2 pick, or however they choose to acquire their. And if it's, you listen to a lot of analysts, including some of your colleagues, I don't think a Jaden Daniels, or especially a Drake May, is really going to be ready to play in week 1. So if Marcus Mariota is suddenly the starter in Washington, doesn't seem like to have the pizzazz of the Dan Quinn era really getting started with the bang there. So what do you make of where kind of this leaves Washington for specifically?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not impressed with Marcus Mariota. A number of people I talked to weren't really impressed with that pick, that signing for him. I would have thought, Brissett just really wanted out of there. We don't know what those conversations were. Do they take a guy that is ready right away? Do they see that he's ready, or do they decide, hey, we're going to sit him behind Mariota and know that, okay, he's a veteran guy, but I mean, Mariota, the last time he was a starter 2 years ago in Atlanta, not very productive. Didn't really. I mean, he was not disastrous. He kind of took care of the football, but there were times where he didn't. He did use his legs a little bit. Again, you're not going to light up a scoreboard like that, but with a rookie, you're not going to. And so, we'll see. Again, not impressed with that decision, but you obviously need a veteran guy who is going to be a good mentor to your second round, your number 2 overall pick, and then see where they go from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, are with you that you'd prefer Brissett, but obviously Jacoby had say in that as well. It wasn't like he was a restricted free agent or anything. The one guy that I think is floating out there that's interesting in that veteran quarterback market is Tannehill. Have you heard anything about him? In Tennessee, there seemed to be a little friction of and that was one of the things that I did appreciate, at least, about Mariota in his press conference. He's like, look, if they need me to be the mentor, I'll be the mentor. He's kind of accepted his fate, which has some value. What's the latest on Tannehill? Because he's the one guy out there that I also had a lot of interest in.
Yeah, he's a guy that I asked a bit better right now than what Mariota is, but not as good as some of the other veterans that were signed to deals. And so, again, if the guy is not going to want to be a mentor to somebody, then maybe that wasn't appealing. I don't know what those discussions were that they had with him, but I think all of these guys who are on the market right now, Sam Darnold, not really the answer. Gardner Minshew, probably the guy that, there and light it up a little bit. He's going to sling the ball around, and the Raiders have him, and, potentially he could be, their starter. Again, Brissett is another guy. Tannehill, I think most people feel like, yeah, he's bested as a backup. His days as a starter are done. And sometimes a player just views himself differently. Make free agency closer towards after the draft, he'll, understand, well, I guess I got to just take a job somewhere and see where.
Crazy thing is, like, a guy like Minshew is probably the best guy out there. And I would say Howell's better than a lot of these guys, Brissett being the exception. But if you're looking for a veteran mentor, like, those guys don't necessarily check the box. So you're stuck with the inferior player in the hopes that it's kind of, and a guy like Mariota can do it. Mike Jones is with us, of course, senior NFL writer for The Athletic. What do you made of the rest of what Adam, from Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Jeremy Chin, anything in particular? All right, I guess let's start here. Like, just on the whole, what have you made of what Adam Peters has been able to do the last couple of days?
A really smart approach. He hasn't broken the bank. They've got a lot of money to spend, but they also have a lot of needs. So he's checking a lot of boxes, filling needs. But I really, really like the Bobby Wagner signing. Look, I know he's going to be, 33? But guy is like a perennial 100-plus tackle guy, a strong leader in the locker room, tone setter for that defense. He'll be like a coach on the field. He's going to be a playmaker as well. That was a really good signing. And a lot of the other guys are tough, physical guys that have something to prove, guys who, are coming back, some of them from injury. And so, yeah, I thought it hasn't been sexy, but it's been smart. And we'll see what they do once they get to the draft, now that they've gotten, some veterans that have checked off a lot of boxes.
The last two positions that I feel like Washington needs to address here to have like ultimate flexibility in the draft is left tackle and corner. And those are two markets that have moved a little bit slower. Corners picked up a little bit in the last 24 hours or so. Kendall Fuller included going to Miami. But what's the deal with the left tackle market and why so many of these, I mean, really, frankly, Mike, since free agency started, it's grown. Different guy like DJ Humphries got cut and got added to the market more than you've seen guys sign. What's kind of the rumblings around the league in that left tackle market?
I'm not sure. I haven't asked around about that as much. And some of them are coming off injuries. Some guys who are, not, cornerstones at this point in their career. But I do know that when asking after the combine, a lot of people said, hey, this is one of the deepest offensive line drafts that we've seen in a long time. And past, a lot of these guys are coming out of college very good against, in pass protection because they throw so much in college. And so I imagine that a lot of these teams are saying, hey, we can get a rookie at the spot that we need. It's very deep. It's going to be cheaper rather than, some of the guys that are out there still.
Makes a lot of sense. It's good intel. Mike Jones, senior NFL writer at The Athletic, been working hard all week. Mike, we appreciate a little bit of time. Thank you, sir. And hopefully eventually this slows down enough that you can, sleep.
Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
right, our final 12 minutes as I look at the clock here on the Hoffman Show. A 5:15 Big East basketball comes your way. And then we got a ton of hoops, obviously, into the next week. On Monday, we have some hoops that knock us out early. Tuesday, Wizards are at home, so we'll be done early. And then Wednesday, the first four is on, so we are done early. So get the Hoffman Show while you can, because Thursday and Friday, we ain't here at all. Matt, you don't have to work next week either on Thursday and Friday. I think you got full shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yep.
But Thursday, Friday, Kevin's gonna do like an hour or 2 hours, and then the NCAA tournament starts.
He's just going to carry the entire station for a couple days, you know?
I mean, some could argue that's what he does already.
The coach puts the entire station on his back.
Yeah, I mean, that's if there's someone that's built for it, it's Kevin Sheehan.
It's Kevin Sheehan.
So enjoy what you can while you can, or rejoice that you don't have to listen to me anymore. There's actually a huge deal that just went down in the NFL that I haven't gotten a lot of notices about or notifications, and I was just scrolling ESPN.com for to check what's trending and all that stuff. And Matt, the Minnesota Vikings have put themselves in position to come into the top 5 and take a quarterback if they want to. The Vikings traded their second-round pick this year and next year, as well as one other pick, but not their first-rounder, for the 23rd pick at Houston. So Houston trades out of the first round this year. They pick up an extra second next year. So 23rd pick in this draft, and then they get some other stuff in return, including Minnesota's second the next 2 years. And now they've got 23 and 11 do Minnesota, and a need at quarterback with Cousins leaving for Atlanta. And now we get to play my favorite game. Would you accept that trade? Hey, ring, ring. If you listen to Take Command, you know that's the trade phone. It's really an impression of Poppy on the Lebitard show, or when they used to do Highly Questionable, and he'd pick up the banana phone. Ring, ring. Hey, it's Quessy here, the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. Adam Peters, I'd like to offer you the 23rd pick in this year's draft, the 11th pick in this year's draft, my first rounder next year in exchange for the second pick, and I've done the math, so you have to trust me that this works out. The second pick this year, the 78th pick this year, and the 100th pick this year. Those are the three that gets it close enough. You really wanted to get aggressive, he could ask for 67 this year instead of 78, but I'm going to go with 78. So you got to pick. It's 3 for 3, but it's number 2 for basically 3 firsts. You get 2 firsts this year, 11 and 23, and Minnesota's first next year. What'd you think, Matt?
I think from a standpoint of draft capital, especially in this year, that's a fantastic deal. Being able to get 2 more picks right there is honestly, it's good because there's so many players that are, I'd say, within the top 25 that have the capability to jump up, and it's just because of who the teams that are drafting necessarily need. Some of those players might drop a little bit lower. Some of those players might jump up. Having the capital this season sounds great. My only issue is as we stand right now, especially with the moves that happened yesterday, our biggest primary need, I think everyone would agree, is we need to have a quarterback. We need to figure out the best quarterback we can possibly draft. And you want to know where the best place for us to draft the best quarterback is right now? That's right.
Number 2.
Number 2.
And therein lies the problem. And this is why my answer on this has not changed and will not change all the way up into draft day. I can only answer for myself. And my answer for me is I think I would lean towards taking that. But that has to do with my confidence in this quarterback class. There's something about May and Daniels that makes me, and I should even be more clear. Even though I've got him rated higher, the boom bust situation with Daniels is enormous. He could be awesome, and he might not be any good. And it might just depend on the situation. So maybe this is all dependent on Washington. But I do think there's a chance that Daniels drops in this draft. And I think that the more I hear and watch McCarthy, I think that gap between all of them is closer. Where I'm like, the one that goes to a good situation is going to be good, and the one that goes to a bad situation is going to stay. Like, whoever goes to New England is probably going to be terrible because their situation's abysmal. They have no receivers. We'll see how their offensive staff is, but that is a rough situation for a young quarterback to step into. Where here, you now have a serviceable offensive line, presuming you figure out left tackle, especially if you were to sign like Tyron Smith. You now have got a serious offensive line. And you have Terry and Jahan. You have good running backs. You have all that stuff. And so if you feel like you can get a high level of play out of Jaden Daniels or out of J.J. McCarthy, I would trade down, get 23, because we've talked about like what happens if they trade 36 and 100 to go up into the end of the first round and get Tyler Guyton at 23 if they make the trade with Houston, which is now Minnesota. Well, what if you don't have to? What if you could have 11, 23, 36, and 40? That sounds sweet to me. But the other thing is you can do the double trade. And we talked about this at the Combine with Trevor Sikkema because he was goofing around and decided to do this in his mock draft where he traded Washington back to 12 and then back up to 10 to take McCarthy. Let's say Jaden Daniels drops to 7 all of a sudden. Seems unlikely. Crazier things have happened. So let's say that happens. And all of a sudden, you can trade from you've traded back to 11. Minnesota comes up. They take Drake May. New England's like, Jaden Daniels is not our guy. They pass. Arizona's not taking him. New York is like, we still got Daniel Jones. It's another dude who runs around a lot. Like, we don't really want to do that. And so they pass. Now you're at 6, which is, do you remember who's 6, Maddie? This is killing me. I'm almost to the point where I know the NFL draft order. We're so close. Number 6 overall is... the Chargers were at 5, so they pass. New York's at 6. They pass. Now Tennessee's on the clock at 7. They've got Levis. Do they want to take that swing? Maybe you call them, or certainly Atlanta at 8. You call them. They don't need a quarterback. And you go, hey, one, at that point, 9 Chicago, 10 New York. Do you really even have to trade up? But there's other teams that would want to get back up at that point. So let's say Tennessee gives you a call and you're like, hey, and they're like, hey, we are willing to trade out of here. We got a couple other teams on the horn. What do you got? Now you have ammo to trade back up. And you could still get Jaden Daniels. You could still certainly get J.J. McCarthy. You double trade down then up, but you still keep that 23rd pick and probably 36 and 40. This is why acquiring 67 or having 67 and then acquiring 78 in the Sam Howell trade is such a big freaking deal. It gives you maneuverability. And so I am very excited about the potential of these things. Also, they could just say, though, and this is the thing all along, this is the it depends of it all. If you love Drake May, you stay at 2 and you take Drake May. And there's almost nothing that anybody could offer you to move you off of that. However, if you are not sold on him, and you don't think the difference between him, McCarthy, Daniels, maybe Nix. I think Nix might fall. The stuff you're hearing right now is Nix could be, in the teens. Nix could fall out of the first round and be available to you at 36. So whatever you think of those quarterbacks, this is why these guys get paid all that money, is because they have to get the evals right. And you have to trust both your evals, and then the other thing you have to trust is your information. And this is the other part about being a GM that's not talked about nearly as much. But it is on the GM and the other people, the assistant GM and other people in that front office to understand what's going on in the league. Who likes who, what's a smokescreen, what's real, to have frank conversations with other teams and be like, we like this guy, we're interested, we think we're going to have to get up with you. So if we get to this situation in the draft, you better give us a call. And those are the kinds of things that Adam Peters is hired to do. So I just think that's an interesting move that seems to be flying a little bit under the radar today, because it certainly seems like Minnesota could be giving Washington a call, or giving New England a call. I mean, forget the Washington angle for a second. Certainly give New England a call to go up and take their guy. But if their guy is Drake May, not Jaden Daniels, they're going to call Washington and try to blow him away. Because the tea leaves are blowing in Drake May's direction right now. So I think that's just something to keep in mind as we move towards the draft. Matt, did I save enough time for real? Let's see, we have like 90 seconds left in the show. So maybe real things, real people said in real microphones. If you can't find it, that's okay. We can just, I hate to leave the people without it going into the weekend. But
real things.
We're not gonna suck this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right, Matt, do you have the folder of options in front of you? Do you have something that we can play for real things? You're driving today, bro.
I mean, I do have something that we can play. This is actually from the show that was airing a little bit earlier.
Okay.
Given that it's got to be a quick one because we got to be out. This one is from our very own Rooster, where he admitted this.
I am a weird dude.
One more time, just for the record.
I am a weird dude.
How many times a week does he say that?
I'm a weird dude?
Yeah.
Enough.
How many times a show does he say something that you can then clip and then use against him later?
Oh, at least once a show. I've had to stop doing it because it's just too many at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to sort.
Yeah.
Tracks. Well, I appreciate you staying the extra hour and change today. Anthony back on Monday. You got Big East basketball next here on the Team 980.